Emma Wilson thought she was walking into a dream job, until she saw the man behind the desk was Ryan Carter, the ex she heartlessly dumped 10 years ago. Now he's rich, powerful, and hiding secrets that go far beyond heartbreak, and Emma just became his next target. Emma Wilson woke up to the sound of her phone buzzing beside her worn-out mattress on the floor. Another rejection email. She stared at the screen for a moment, numb. For the past 6 months, every day had started like this. She had been laid off from her retail job when the store closed down, and ever since then finding work had been a brutal uphill battle. Her savings had vanished, rent was overdue, and she was living off canned food and instant noodles. The once bright and hopeful woman had grown quieter, her confidence slowly crumbling under the weight of daily disappointments. That morning, however, something unexpected happened. A new email appeared in her inbox, subject line, interview invitation, Orion Enterprises. She blinked to make sure she wasn't imagining it. She didn't even remember applying to that company, but she must have during one of her late-night application marathons. Her heart raced. Orion was a rising star in the marketing industry, known for its luxurious offices, huge campaigns, and highly paid staff. Getting an interview there was rare, especially for someone with her background. Without hesitation, she clicked to confirm her attendance. The interview was scheduled for the very next day at 10 a.m., and the office was located in the upscale business district downtown. It felt too good to be true, but Emma knew better than to question luck. She rummaged through her limited wardrobe, pulling out the least wrinkled blouse and a pencil skirt that still fit. She ironed them carefully using a towel and a flat iron, trying to make the outfit look presentable. Her shoes were scuffed, but she polished them with a kitchen sponge and black marker. The following morning, Emma left early, catching a crowded bus that rattled through the city. Her stomach was empty, but she didn't care. She was too nervous to eat. As she stepped off near the towering glass building that housed Orion Enterprises, she paused for a moment. The entrance gleamed under the morning sun, and people in expensive suits and high heels walked confidently past her. For a second, she felt out of place, like a fraud pretending to belong. Inside, the lobby was sleek and cold, filled with expensive decor and quiet tension. A receptionist gave her a polite nod and directed her to the 19th floor. She stepped into the elevator, her heart thudding with each rising number. As she reached the designated floor and walked into the office's waiting area, she noticed how clean everything was, too clean, almost unnatural. She sat down, clutching her resume, trying to steady her nerve. Minutes felt like hours. Then finally, a tall man entered the room and called her name. She stood up quickly, ready to follow, but when she turned to face him, time seemed to freeze. There, standing in front of her, was Ryan Carter, older, sharper, and dressed like power itself. Her mind reeled. This wasn't just some CEO. This was her Ryan. The same Ryan she had broken up with 10 years ago. The same Ryan who had been poor, soft-spoken, and hopelessly in love with her. And now, he was the boss. Her mouth went dry. He didn't say anything, just gestured toward his office, and Emma, too stunned to speak, followed him inside. Emma stepped into the glass-walled office, her heels clicking softly against the polished wooden floor. Everything inside radiated wealth and precision. A massive mahogany desk sat near the window, overlooking the skyline. Behind it, sleek black bookshelves were lined with business awards, books on leadership, and framed photographs of industry events. It didn't feel like an office. It felt like a throne room. Ryan walked over to the desk and took a seat, motioning for her to sit across from him. Emma obeyed silently, her mind still spiraling. A decade had passed since she had last seen him, but in this moment, it felt like no time had passed at all. Yet everything about him had changed. His hair was styled neatly, his suit was custom fit, and his eyes, once soft and full of dreams, were sharp, unreadable. His entire presence commanded attention. He picked up her resume without a word, scanning it slowly. The silence stretched, thick and uncomfortable. Emma sat stiffly, her hands folded in her lap. Part of her wanted to say something, to acknowledge the elephant in the room. But something about his demeanor made her hesitate. He wasn't giving her anything, not a smile, not a smirk, not even the faintest flicker of recognition. He read her resume carefully, nodding here and there, his face revealing nothing. He asked a few generic questions about her previous job, her skills, and why she wanted to work at Orion Enterprises. Emma answered politely, carefully keeping her voice calm. On the surface, it was a normal interview, but beneath the surface, every second felt surreal. She couldn't shake the feeling that this wasn't a coincidence. As the interview went on, she found herself observing him closely. His confidence was obvious, but so was his control. Every movement, every word, was calculated. This wasn't the Ryan she had dated in college, the struggling art student who had once gifted her hand-drawn sketches on her birthday and talked about changing the world. That man had been full of dreams. This man was full of something else entirely. At the end of the interview, Ryan finally looked directly into her eyes. The intensity in his gaze made her flinch slightly. Then, without any visible emotion, he stood up and extended his hand. "You'll hear from us soon," he said calmly. Emma shook his hand, her pulse racing. It was the first and only time he acknowledged her presence in a personal way. She left the room feeling dazed, as if she had just stepped out of a dream or a nightmare. Her head buzzed with questions. Did he recognize her and choose to pretend otherwise? Was this just an insane coincidence? Or was there something more going on? By the time she exited the building, she felt like she had entered a different world. She looked up at the towering windows of Orion Enterprises, heart pounding. This was not just another job interview. Something about it felt staged, deliberate, personal. And in that moment, Emma sensed that whatever was waiting for her behind that polished office door wasn't just a new job, it was a reckoning. The next morning, Emma received an official email from Orion Enterprises. The subject line simply read, "Welcome to the team. No second interview. No tests. No background checks. Just a start date and a welcome packet attached." For a company as competitive and high-profile as Orion, it was shockingly informal. She reread the email several times, half expecting to find a mistake, but it was real. She was in. Her first day came quickly. She put on the same pressed blouse and skirt, added some light makeup, and arrived 10 minutes early. The receptionist greeted her with a polite smile and handed her a company badge. Everything moved smoothly, almost too smoothly. A junior HR representative gave her a quick tour: cafeteria, lounge area, workstations. The office was ultra-modern and sterile, all glass and steel with the occasional splash of color in abstract art pieces. Her workstation was oddly positioned. While most employees were seated in clustered pods, Emma's desk sat alone, just outside the executive offices. From her chair she had a clear line of sight to Ryan's office, and more importantly, he could easily see her. She asked the HR rep about it, but was told it was a temporary setup, until they completed office renovations. It sounded convenient, almost rehearsed. On her desk, a brand new laptop and company phone were already set up and logged in. It was unusual. Normally, new employees spent their first few days waiting for IT to issue credentials, but hers were fully ready. Even the background image on the phone was the Orion logo, neatly customized. She noticed several strange apps already installed: security tools, tracking software, and productivity monitors. She didn't think much of it at the time. Big companies often tracked performance. Her workload, however, raised more questions. While her colleagues looked buried in spreadsheets and campaign proposals, Emma's tasks were minimal, mostly reading onboarding materials, reviewing outdated reports, and sitting in on team meetings without any assignments. She was being paid, yet given almost nothing to do. Despite the generous salary and high-tech environment, a subtle tension hung in the air. Her coworkers were polite but distant, almost robotic in their interactions. No one lingered in the break room, and conversations were hushed. Everyone seemed busy, but the atmosphere lacked warmth, spontaneity, or even humor. It felt like a place where eyes were always watching, ears always listening. Emma occasionally spotted Ryan walking through the halls, his presence always commanding, his expression unreadable. He never approached her directly, never acknowledged their shared past. He simply passed by with a nod, as if she were just another employee. Still, the unease grew. Something felt too controlled, too smooth. She started to wonder why she was really here. Why had Ryan hired her without a proper interview? Why place her in plain view of his office? Why make everything so easy and yet so strange? Emma had gotten what she wanted, a prestigious job with great pay. But deep down she felt like a piece on a chessboard she didn't understand, a game set in motion long before she walked through Orion's glass doors. As the weeks passed, Emma tried to settle into her role at Orion Enterprises, but the discomfort never faded. The sense of being watched became more than just a feeling. Every time she moved, turned her head, or clicked her mouse, she sensed invisible eyes following her. She began to notice patterns. People who passed by her desk always glanced twice, security guards who lingered near the executive floor longer than necessary, and the subtle shift in tone whenever her name came up in meetings. One afternoon, as she sipped lukewarm coffee in the break room, she overheard two colleagues whispering near the vending machine. They didn't notice her tucked behind the coffee machine. Their conversation was low, nervous, and scattered, but one phrase caught her attention. That intern, she just disappeared. No notice, no exit paperwork, just gone. The words froze her in place. She remained silent until they left, then quickly returned to her desk, pretending nothing had happened. Curiosity bloomed into suspicion. That night, Emma couldn't sleep. She sat up in bed, laptop open, researching every name she remembered from the office and digging through LinkedIn, news articles, and forums. It took hours, but eventually she found something. A brief article from a local blog about a missing college intern named Lily Chen, who had been working at Orion Enterprises the year before. There were no updates, no investigations, just a few comments from worried classmates and family. Her photo stared back at Emma. Dark hair, intelligent eyes, a friendly smile. What unsettled Emma most was the resemblance. Lily looked shockingly similar to her, same height, same frame, even similar hairstyle. The coincidence felt too sharp, too pointed. She continued digging and discovered that Lily's social media accounts had gone silent weeks before she was reported missing. Her last post was a simple office selfie, with the caption, "New Beginning." Emma shut the laptop, her hands trembling. She tried to convince herself it was just paranoia. But when she returned to work the next day, she noticed more strange details. Her company phone, which she barely used, occasionally lit up with brief flashes, apps opening on their own, calls that dropped before they connected, messages that vanished. She brought it to IT, but they dismissed it as a glitch, and handed it back with a smile that didn't reach the technician's eyes. She began to wonder if the job offer had been a coincidence at all. Had Ryan known she would apply? Had he tracked her somehow? She had dumped him 10 years ago when he was broke and struggling. Now he was wealthy, powerful, and silent, and she was working just a few feet from his office. The balance had flipped entirely. Despite her growing fear, Emma knew she couldn't quit. Rent was due. Her savings were gone. She needed the paycheck. So she stayed, smiled when necessary, completed her tasks, and tried not to show the storm building behind her eyes. But deep inside, one question wouldn't stop echoing. Was she chosen for her skills or for something else entirely? Emma's sense of dread deepened with each passing day. The sleek, modern walls of Orion Enterprises, once symbols of success, now felt like a cage. Every hallway echoed with quiet footsteps. Every conversation was clipped and careful. She had always prided herself on being observant, but now that trait felt like both a blessing and a curse. The more she noticed, the more terrified she became. One evening, after most employees had left for the day, Emma stayed behind to finish reviewing some outdated reports. The office was quiet, the only sound coming from the faint hum of the central air. As she navigated the company's internal server for a particular document, she noticed a hidden folder nested deep within another project directory, one that wasn't supposed to be accessible to her level of clearance. It shouldn't have opened, but it did. Inside the folder were dozens of files, each labeled only with initials and numbers. Some were image files, others were videos, a few were Word documents. Out of instinct more than reason, she opened one. Her breath caught. It was a surveillance photo of a young woman sitting at a cafe. Another showed the same woman entering a building. More photos followed, some taken at work, others in private moments. The timestamp showed they were taken over several weeks. Emma moved to another folder. This time, the photos were of someone else, a different young woman, similar in appearance to the first. Again, her daily routine had been documented in chilling detail. Everything from when she arrived at work to when she left, even what she wore. One subfolder held diary-like entries. They weren't written by the women, they were written about them. Cold, observational notes describing their moods, behaviors, and even relationships. A sickening realization dawned. These weren't just random women. Many had been employees at Orion. Emma recognized a few faces from old employee ID badges left in desk drawers or unused mailboxes near the break room. But the most disturbing file she found was labeled with a name she now couldn't forget: Lily Chen, the intern who had disappeared. Opening Lily's folder sent a chill down Emma's spine. It was more detailed than the others. Photos, schedules, medical notes, even scanned images of her handwritten notes and phone records. The last document was labeled Final Entry. It was short, just a line: moved to secure location, risk level moderate. Emma's hands shook as she closed the files and quietly copied the folder onto a USB drive she had in her hearse. She deleted all traces of her access from the log, at least as best as she could. Her heart pounded so loudly she thought someone might hear it. She now knew with certainty that Ryan had been watching these women, and possibly more. The job offer hadn't been luck. She was being studied, just like the others. Each woman had some connection to him. She wasn't an employee. She was a subject. Emma glanced toward the hallway leading to Ryan's office. The door was closed, lights off, but the feeling of being observed remained. She was in a trap, and now she needed to find a way out. Emma spent the next 2 days pretending everything was normal. She showed up to work on time, smiled at colleagues, responded to emails, and acted like nothing had changed. Inside, however, she was spiraling. The hidden files had shattered any illusion of safety. She was no longer just a new employee. She was a target, handpicked and placed in plain view like a trophy on display. Every second at Orion now felt like walking through a minefield, with Ryan's unseen presence pressing against her like a weight on her chest. She knew she couldn't simply run. Quitting would raise suspicion. Disappearing would only speed up whatever plan Ryan had in place. So, she decided on something smarter: escape from the inside. Emma started documenting everything. She carried a hidden recorder in her coat pocket, saved encrypted copies of every file she could access, and sent them anonymously to a trusted friend she hadn't spoken to in years. Claire, a freelance journalist known for digging into corporate corruption. In her message, she didn't share everything, only enough to plant the seed. If anything happens to me, start here. Trust no one at Orion. She also visited the HR department, pretending to be confused about a clause in her contract. What she found made her stomach twist. A non-disclosure and retention agreement had been digitally signed under her name, locking her into a 12-month minimum term with massive penalties for early exit. But she had never seen that document before. The signature matched hers exactly, but it wasn't real. Someone had forged it. When she pointed this out to the HR rep, the woman gave a rehearsed smile and replied that all contracts were secure and verified by legal. There was no room for dispute. After that meeting, Emma's phone began acting strangely. Notifications from apps she never opened. Missed calls from random numbers. even late-night messages from anonymous senders that vanished seconds after appearing. One message simply said, "You were always curious." The next morning, her laptop camera light flicked on by itself. It stayed on for exactly 7 seconds before shutting off. Emma taped over it. That same day, Ryan invited her to dinner, through a formal email sent by his assistant. The message was simple: "Mr. Carter would like to host you for a private dinner to welcome you officially." The email included a calendar invite, a driver's pickup time, and a note marked mandatory. She declined the invitation. That evening, when she returned home, she noticed something out of place. Her apartment door was locked, but the chain on the inside had been undone. Nothing was stolen, but someone had been there. A single rose lay on her pillow, perfectly placed in the center, its petals bright red against the dull gray of her sheets. Emma didn't sleep that night. The message was clear. She wasn't just being watched. She was being warned. Emma's decision to decline Ryan's invitation marked a silent declaration of resistance. It was a small act, but in the context of the game she now realized she was trapped in, it was a bold one. The next day at the office, she noticed the shift immediately. Her desk phone rang more frequently, but each time she picked up, there was silence on the other end. Her emails stopped coming altogether. Tasks vanished from her calendar. Coworkers no longer made eye contact. It was as if she'd been cut off from the machine without anyone saying a word. She checked the USB she had hidden in her purse, and found it missing. In its place was a note, written on Orion stationery. It simply read, "You don't need copies. The truth lives here." She stared at the words, her throat tightening. They hadn't just searched her belongings. They had taken back control of the story she thought she was building. That afternoon, she made her decision. She couldn't play their game anymore. She had to get out. She requested emergency medical leave, citing personal health concerns. HR responded with a cold acknowledgement and required her to stay until the end of the week to complete transition tasks. It was clear she wouldn't be allowed to just disappear, so she planned her escape meticulously. She began deleting all personal traces from her workstation. She copied the surveillance footage folders once again, this time breaking it into encrypted pieces and storing them across multiple email drafts and cloud drives. She wrote a confession letter and scheduled it to auto-send in 48 hours. It named names, exposed the files, and pointed a finger at Ryan Carter. Her final act was to remove the Orion tracking software from her company-issued phone. She wiped it clean and prated it with a decoy, a second phone with similar apps, just enough to appear real. The real phone, the one she would carry out, held the last key, a folder labeled Exit Files. That evening, after most of the staff had gone home, Emma made her move. She took the back hallway toward the emergency exit stairwell, clutching her bag tightly. But when she reached the door and pushed the bar to exit, it didn't budge. A small red light above the handle blinked. The fire door was locked from the outside, an illegal and dangerous violation, but in Orion's world rules didn't seem to apply. Her heart pounded. She turned around to go back, but the hallway was suddenly flooded with soft white light. The overhead fixtures had come back on. Somewhere, a camera was watching. She stepped backward, inching toward the shadows, when she heard slow, deliberate footsteps approaching from the far end of the hallway. She didn't wait. Emma darted to the nearest supply closet, slipped inside, and held her breath. Through the sliver of light beneath the door, she saw polished shoes pause outside. Then, after a moment that stretched endlessly, the steps continued down the hall and disappeared. She remained hidden for nearly an hour, afraid to move. When she finally emerged, the hallway was silent once more. But something inside her had changed. Emma now understood the truth. She wasn't leaving through any door Orion had built. She had to find a door they didn't know existed. Emma vanished the next day. She didn't pack a suitcase. She didn't notify her landlord. She didn't even take her favorite books or personal items. She left everything behind: her clothes, her furniture, even her name. The only thing she carried was a worn backpack and the encrypted drive containing the last fragments of Orion's secrets. By the time the office opened that morning, she was already gone. Her disappearance wasn't dramatic. There were no frantic calls, no public statements. Orion Enterprises sent a polite internal memo stating that Emma Wilson had resigned due to personal health matters. Her desk was cleared within an hour, no one asked questions, and those who noticed didn't speak. That was how Orion operated. Silence wasn't just encouraged, it was expected. But outside the sleek walls of the corporate tower, whispers had started to spread. A week later, a small news blog published an anonymous tip about a powerful executive involved in surveillance, manipulation, and the unexplained disappearances of young women connected to his past. The article was vague, unverified, and mostly ignored by the mainstream media, but it caught the attention of a few readers, especially those who had once worked at Orion and left quietly, like shadows slipping through the cracks. Then something stranger happened. Claire, the journalist friend Emma had reached out to, received a package with no return address. Inside was a burner phone. On it were voice memos, screenshots, and several grainy video files, showing late-night activity at Orion's headquarters. There were images of files, photos, documents, names too many to dismiss. The final video showed security footage of Emma, walking through the office hallways late at night, staring directly into the camera, and mouthing one clear word, "Help." Claire tried to trace the phone, but it led nowhere. She published a detailed exposé, connecting the dots between the missing women, the founder's personal history, and confidential files buried in Orion's servers. It gained traction online, drawing the attention of digital activists and amateur sleuths. Yet, despite growing interest, no legal action followed. Orion denied all allegations, calling the claims baseless fiction fueled by internet conspiracies. Ryan Carter never made a public statement. He remained calm, untouched by scandal, his empire unharmed. But inside the company, rumors quietly festered. New interns arrived, new assistants were hired. One, in particular, stood out. A woman who resembled Emma, with similar features and a matching height, though she used a different name. Some believed it was Emma, in disguise, returned to infiltrate the company and finish what she started. Others believed she had been caught, broken, and absorbed into the system like the women before her. But the truth was unclear, and Emma was never seen again. People still debate what really happened. Was it love turned to obsession? A powerful man's quest for control? Or something even darker, hidden beneath polished floors and glass doors? Whatever the truth, one thing remains. No one ever leaves Orion the same, and some never leave at all.